Welcome to Constructive, a podcast about construction, technology, and whatever else comes up. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to Constructive, everybody. I got Paul Hedgepath here with me today. I pronounced that right, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And tell us about MJ Harris and what you do there.
So I am my title's Director of Virtual Construction at MJ Harris, and really that encompasses everything construction tech related. So anytime we have any type of need in the field or any need of direct construction technology related things, that's going to be kind of what I do. So that's not networks or computers or the other types of things, but anything related to building buildings, right, where we're using technology. So that really involves like laser scanning and drones and BIM and AI and Procore and all these other things too. So it's been a very, I guess, diverse type of role. And especially over the past, I would say, 8 years or so, it's even changed even more just with all the new emerging tech.
Cool. I want to kind of Quentin Tarantino this one a little bit because I want to get into your background and what motivated like how you ended up in this. But let's save that for a little bit because just right now we're dealing with explosions in technology. AI is just really becoming on everybody's radar. Tell me about what you think. Like, are we at a precipice? Is stuff really about to change fast? Has it already been changing and we're just kind of catching up as an industry? Where do you feel we're at?
I mean, I think it is changing fast and it's going to continue to change. So there's really no benchmark, like a Moore's law or anything like that. You really don't know because it's continuing to improve. And a lot of people will kind of say, "Oh, it's just a bandwagon. You're getting on the AI bandwagon, or you're getting on this thing." And if you kind of look back in history, when people have said that, the world has changed. I think I looked at something. There was an image from a newspaper article talking about the internet and saying, "Oh, this is just a fad. Millions are giving up on it." And now look at us, right? So there is a lot of noise in technology, right? And you got to sift through it. But when there's something like this that impacts not only our industry but everybody, then it definitely is. I mean, this is the next bigger than industrial revolution, bigger, and these are things that the CTO of Turner Construction has said. He's been there 30 years, so not just me. These are some hype guys that know a lot, and they're giving big statements like this. So yeah, we're at a point to where things are changing. I think to answer your question about the construction industry, we tend to lag behind in terms of technology adoption, right? Just because of the nature of what we do. But at this point, we're not as behind as we used to be. I would say like when BIM was introduced and really became commonplace, 20 years ago, there would have been a slower adoption rate back then than there is now for things like AI and other things, just because we're a little bit more used to integrating technology into everything that we do.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you think I've heard you talk about there's kind of a balance beam we have to walk here because I think it is good that we have some people in our industry that understand if you've done business a certain way for a long time and it works, there's something to that. You don't just throw that out and say, oh, we've made money this way for 100 years. But there's also, we're in a time that it feels very valuable to be flexible and willing to change and dynamic as a company. And how do you guys kind of navigate that balance beam?
So it is a very tight balance beam. It's like a tightrope. You're saying, all right, well, I'm on here and I want to be innovative and I want to push us forward, but we don't want to overwhelm people, right? And so really finding that end result, saying, okay, I know that these guys do a certain thing every day and it takes a lot of their time and it's really busy work, right? Maybe AI can address that and help them and really improve their workflow so they can spend more time on the important things. I mean, you could say the same thing about BIM as far as, hey, we want to have our superintendents in the field add quality, add more quality than sometimes they have time to do because they're out there in the field fixing in the field clashes. Why don't we figure that out ahead of time and give them more capacities? Whenever you have an end result and say, this is the problem we see. Do you think it's a problem? Ask the field guys, ask the assistant PM, and then they'll agree and say, yeah, it's a problem. It takes a long time. Well, I'm going to try to fix that problem, right? And then sticking with that formula, no matter what, no matter how much cool stuff you see and how distracted you may get, it still allows you to innovate. And I think that's a good tip for the people trying to sell us this stuff too, right? Your software vendors and all, and always sticking with the end goal in mind of what is the, don't create a product and then try to find a problem for it. Find the problem first.
Yeah, do you think that's a big part of the problem that construction guys that are anti-tech, part of it is just, hey, you're giving me these solutions to problems I don't have. Can you solve one of the problems that actually bothers me on the site?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
hear that a lot?
Yeah, or not a lot, but I do hear it. So I think it's because I don't try to give solutions to people the problem don't have. So
Right.
I try to eliminate. But I used to hear it a lot when before years back before we really kind of learned the best delivery method for this, and you're just like, oh, this is cool, let's do this, and then you're gonna hear it, and then you don't understand why no one wants it, right? And so yeah, I mean you're right. And sometimes there's solutions that you have that solve a problem that you know they have, but then they don't realize it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So then you have to still demo it and show them. But I think the best way to, I mean, a demo is good for technology solution, but the best way is to say this other company or this other individual on this other job site, did this and had this success. You hear it from him, hear it from the person that has the same position you do, and there's going to be a little bit more trust instilled in that whole solution that you're given.
Do you have some specific examples of like problems you've found recently and tech that filled that gap perfectly? Give me some of the best examples.
I mean, I think just over the evolution of recently, one of the problems, and we've been 360 photo users since 2017, so we were an early adopter, and they were a construction site back then, and now they're drone deployed ground. But we had a problem as far as capturing photos in the field, right? So we'd have guys out there using their phone, or we even had digital cameras, and there was a lot of labeling that had to go on, or maybe you put a pin in the right place, but still a lot of confusion and a lot of time it took to capture all that stuff. So just a simple 360 photo with 360 camera, taking one photo, and it can encompasses almost 24 different photos, and then coming up with a workflow that works. We're capturing stuff. We have these on all of our jobs now. So we've got probably 30 or 40 360 camera packs deployed, and all our field engineers are doing this. And we see a whole lot more about what's going on in our job. We're seeing at risk primarily, and we're on the hook for almost anything that goes on in the field, right? So now we have this transparency that we didn't have before. Now
Can we,
it took a year or so to get that
yeah,
going, right? And
right.
it took me going out to the job site, taking the photos and showing the guys and talking about the benefits. And then it took some real wins where we had to go back and look at something and say, hey, I'm glad I had the 360 photo. And then, it was, after that, it's enterprise wide everywhere. So that's one story of, I guess, many, but that's one I like
Yeah.
because it's kind of a simple thing, right? Press the button and do it. And now you
Well,
get
I've
all this
thought about it
benefit.
throughout my career. I think the first
Yeah.
10 years of my career, a big portion of my job was go out on the site, take pictures, fill out a daily report, see if it lines up with what we had in our baseline schedule,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically the job of a project engineer a lot of times, right? I mean, track the submittals, track the RFIs, like there's some desk stuff too, but go out there and take pictures and put them in a daily report so that everybody can talk about what happened today. And then you
Hmm.
got the project engineer doing that for sure from the GC, but you got subs and you've got inspectors, you've got owners representatives, like a lot of parties out there constantly taking pictures,
Yeah.
and then they go home and they upload the pictures and then they upload them into their reports and then they modify them, and people want to see different angles and they're like, oh, can we talk about that beam that was too short? And they're like, well, where is the beam? And oh, I have a picture of it here somewhere. And
Yeah.
you're talking about drone deploy, like I've seen the power of it. You can every day, if you wanted, probably easiest to do like once a week, you can have a complete reality capture. You can do it now with a drone. Sorry
Hmm.
to fill in, you should be telling me this, but yeah, what I've seen, please fill in the blanks. But you can have a drone walking around or rolling around on the site. You can have it flying overhead and get
Hmm.
exterior and interior with a 360 camera. And then you've got Google Street View of your project that gets updated as regularly as you want. And you really don't have to have any humans involved in the taking pictures part of it if you didn't want to, but it could just be one guy wearing a helmet with a 360 camera or holding it. And
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
easy task that before everybody was out there trying to get their own pictures. Now it's a super powerful tool in a meeting. Can you talk about that too? Like when you go to a meeting where maybe half the team hasn't been on site, you got an architect who only visits once a month, and now you can pull up that. Can you talk about some of those meetings where it's like, wow, we can actually get stuff done in a meeting now?
Yeah, we were building a stadium in Alabama A&M Stadium, probably about $50 million stadium, and the interior architect was in Ohio, right, not Alabama, and then we had the regular architect out here, and so she wants to get updates in terms of the progress of the interior. All she had to do was go in there and look at drone deployed ground and check it out. And you're absolutely right about the autonomous ability of drones as well as interior photos now. So drones, I mean, they even got things now with docks that are coming out to where people are being able to do it and fly remote from other sides of the country. Uh, and some people are offering this as a service. And then the autonomous ability of taking photos in the job. Boston Dynamics has had the Spot robot for a while, but there's also other ones that are coming out like Teleworker AI, where you can actually pay a couple grand a month and have a robot come out and you're renting this thing, right? You're not investing as much and it's doing this autonomous photo capture. So you're going to continue to see AI and robotics marry more as we go, and incorporate that into reality capture and photo documentation within a job site.
Do you think too, add AI to that and you have something really powerful? We've seen it with drone
Oh yeah.
deploy, the safety implications of, hey, now you can catch stuff that maybe you couldn't see because it was too dark, but maybe you wouldn't catch. Can you talk
hmm
about what AI is already doing with that reality capture element?
Yeah. So just the ability of AI to analyze all the photos, analyze video now, and it can give you a basically a review, a safety review of the whole site. Drone deployed ground's got some safety AI things that they're integrating in. Data Grid is another great one where they can analyze images as well as connect into all your different points, Procore, and all these things, and it becomes an assistant, a true agentic AI. I was just on the job site yesterday, another $140 million job, and sitting down with the assistant PM and talking about his issues with submittal workflow and things like that, and how Data Grid is able to be agentic and help with that, and it's answering these questions for him. But then we also had an issue in the field with some waterproofing and some things that were going on and some tape that needed to be on a corner before the waterproofing was applied. And superintendents asking the assistant project manager, calling them and asking them, and they would have to go in and look at submittals and specs and different things to get the answer on that. Well, now with what we're setting up with agentic AI, it's a simple text. Hey, is this tape required? And then it can answer. Data Grid can answer and say yes, and give him the submittal and pull it up on his phone in the field. So that whole phone call to the assistant PM to look all that data up is eliminated. Now, it
Yeah, I
doesn't
think
doesn't
that's
replace them. It doesn't replace them,
right.
right? It just
Right.
enhances and makes the whole job go faster because we got 100 guys on site. We're going, it's full throttle right now, and it just makes everybody's job a little bit easier and things a little bit better. So,
Yeah, I've seen on a personal level what AI has done. I mean, specifically for me, it's just the free version of ChatGPT. It's my favorite intern, it's my personal intern that I collaborate with on even just how to write an email with a different tone or
hmm
make this more professional, and I can speak into it and say something that then can be turned into a memorandum that feels really professional, stuff like
yeah,
that I've seen it being very powerful at. But now those kind of things I think are going to save that example is it's going to save projects a lot of money down the line because, hey, you missed that flashing tape in the corner. Maybe the engineer doesn't know for sure, looks through a few drawings and says, you know what, I think we're okay. And then like 10 years later, your building's leaking and you're like, I have no idea why. Like just that simple thing of like one
hmm
layer of AI saying, let's run this through data grid, I think in your case. And
yeah,
it can find a lot of those things that might save you $1 million 10 years from now, but we
yeah.
might never know it exactly. Some of these things we are going to be able to have metrics for, but some of them, they're going to be intangible, right?
Yeah, you can think about just that one example. You're using Data Grid for AI to answer the question and then pull up the submittal. You're using Drone Deployed Ground to take a picture of the condition. You can tag the picture in Drone Deployed Ground and create an observation in Procore that then asks maybe the waterproofer guy about it, or and then it's elevated to the architect, and all this is kind of tied together. It all works together. It's connected, and so really I mean, I can remember 2017, we were still dealing with a Prolog, server-based system, and we had the architect on Nuforma, and we had maybe the owner on something else, and it was all fragmented and siloed. And now we're really, just over the past few years, we're bringing everything together to where the entire team is on one platform. I mean, now we have software as a service. Most general contractors using a Procore or a Build or something like that. But now we're evolving into these agentic AI solutions that may end up replacing SaaS, right?
Hmm.
And this might be the whole new platform for everything that we do.
Yeah, my favorite metaphor, because I know people get scared, like, what will my job be? Maybe if you are like a PE, you just studied construction management at college, and you're like, well, is my job going to get taken away? I really think very optimistically about this. I think that we're going to need the people to use the tools. I think if you think
Yeah,
about calculators, I'm old enough to remember that people were freaking out when I was in second grade. Like, do we want our kids to be able to use calculators on tests?
yeah,
I think I remember hearing people freak out like, our calculator's going to take away math jobs. And I'm like, there's a lot more math work out there now than there was before
hmm
the calculator was created. I really think it's going to be the same exact thing with AI. We're not going to have less work to do. The tasks will be easier because we can automate them. And I
hmm
think maybe we'll get home to our families sooner, and we won't have to do the backbreaking work of construction as often, and we'll have people maybe enjoy their job more in this utopia. I know there's downsides to tech that on a personal level I could go on forever. Maybe we're headed for Armageddon, but right now I think in the immediate future for construction it's great. And
yeah,
I think it is an important thing to preach balance, because we don't want to just adopt every technology and then realize most of it's not making us money, but some of it's undeniably helping us.
hmm
And I think companies like yours that are putting the money into R&D and trying these things, talk about too failure, because I know you guys have some stories of like, we've been on the cutting edge and we moved into the bleeding edge, and then we kind of backed off a little bit, right?
yeah. Yeah, we've never failed though now. Come on. Yeah, you're right though. It happens. And when you try something and it fails, sometimes it's hard to recover, right? Because you have to gain the trust of people that allow you to try something on their job site. And then you really got to find those tech champions that are willing to try it out and that are okay with it failing. So you got to pick those guys, that superintendent that loves tech and it's like, man, I'll try it. I'll try anything, right? You got to find that guy. You don't want to find the guy that you have to convince about tech already and say, hey, try this. And if it fails, you've lost them forever, or it'll be a while before you get them back, right? It's like we talked about. It's a tightrope. It's a tightrope on
Hmm.
technology, and it's a tightrope with people, right? Finding the right person that wants to try something and see that success.
That's a good segue, because I kind of want to spend the second half of this about people. I
Yeah,
just think that, yeah, as much as tech is becoming more and more important, I think there's going to be a premium in every space on authenticity as humans. I think that face to face time is going to have a premium. I think that creative thinking people and people who can challenge an AI system, like, I think even prompting as an idea, there's a human element to it that's really going to create the value in the tech. But I think when you're picking people for a team, what are you looking for, and what kind of brought you to this space? What part of your personality drew you to construction but also tech? Because that's an interesting hybrid, right?
yeah. Really started in architecture. So I worked for an architect in the late 90s and I had an associate's in architecture and went into Auburn University in the architecture program. And so that's kind of how I got started. But then I quickly realized that being creative and designing thing is different than being a draftsman for an architecture firm. And so I didn't even know about building science back then or the whole profession as a construction industry. That's something that we still struggle with today is educating, high school students. Hey, there is a career. A lot of people think about construction. They think about our skilled labor force, which they're incredibly valuable, and that's a great job to have, but that's all they think about. They don't think about management routes and superintendent routes and other things. But yeah, so once I was in building science, I kind of went through there and it became almost a hybrid of tech and construction for me because I'd done so much CAD and back then it was Form Z, 3D modeling and that kind of stuff. And I kind of held on to that. I did architecture electives with 3D modeling and still did the building science classes too. And then once I got into the workforce, I was at Holder Construction to start with. There really was no BIM around at that time. So me and a couple other guys kind of started it up and started a whole construction technology program at Holder. Back then they were 500 million. I think they're 6 billion now. But it really kind of grew from there. And so it was kind of an organic thing, right? I wanted to be a designer and I love technology. And then I wanted to be a builder all of a sudden too, but I still love technology. And kind of just grew into that role, and it's followed me ever since. So, Holder for I guess 6 years, and Jay Dunn for a little while, both two massive companies, and now I've been at MJ Harris for about 13 and a half years. And so we're roughly about 300 million. So, but when I started, we were 80. So I've had the kind of the big, massive company experience as well as a small company starting here, and now a mid-size, and kind of seeing how the technology adoption grows and changes with all those different types of companies.
Yeah, do you think that that's a coincidence, or do you think that companies in your case have grown because of the use of technology? I also wanted to get into like, is this stuff kind of limited to big projects, or um, I see it starting to come down to the really small projects. Construction is a huge, wide ranging. You could call a construction project a $20,000 fence around a park, you know?
Hmm.
So when are we going to get it across the board, if ever? And how should people be deciding? Like, we're a small company. Maybe we only do 10 million a year.
Hmm.
How much should we put into actually R&D of tech?
I would say, in terms, if you think about, a lot of people say, well, maybe some jobs are too small for BIM. We do it on all our jobs. And some companies will say, well, I'm only going to do BIM if it's spec required. I mean, I can count on two hands how many spec required jobs I've had in BIM, yet I've done 110 BIM jobs. So there's the ability to manage your risk, just like we have estimators and we have superintendents in the field. All these people are there to manage our risk, and you have to kind of look at tech as the same thing. It's managing our risk and saving us money, and we're going to do it anyway, and not so much as an abstract thing, right? So once you start to view things like that, it becomes a little easier. Yeah, there's an investment, but superintendents have salaries too, and all these people have salaries that reduce risk, and the same thing with tech. But at the same point, you might be able to start to get some of that recoverable too within job cost as owners are starting to see the value of this. It's become easier. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
wonder if you've seen if I think about it from a textbook theory perspective, it makes sense to me that to really scale a company like a construction company or architecture or whatever, you need to supplement with technology. I think it's necessary. And I was just wondering if you've seen two examples of companies growing a lot and you've been a part of the tech adoption process. Like, do you think
Hmm.
there's a very direct correlation between how seriously we take automating with tech and how much our company can actually grow? Where's the ceiling?
I think there is a direct relation to that. I mean, the economy and inflation and other things cause some of these companies to have a lot more value annually than they used to. If you're not, you can't grow if you don't adopt tech. If you try to stay in the old ways, there's no way to manage that much more workload. Because yeah, your staff's going to grow too, but usually companies are going to grow faster than their staff, right? They're not going to hire people when they don't have work. So you have to have tech to help streamline some of these processes. Otherwise, it's unmanageable, and then you stagnate, and then you don't grow. So I think
And
there's an
back,
absolute direct
yeah.
correlation with that. So
And back to the
yeah.
people, don't you think too, if we're going to grow a company and utilize tech, and we obviously still need people, it becomes even more important who you hire, right? Like, what kind of
Hmm.
personalities do we want? What kind of skills do we want? I think are changing rapidly. For a
Hmm.
construction company, it might used to be I think maybe, like I was saying earlier, maybe now more than ever, you really want the builder knowledge. So maybe you want to capture it somehow. We cannot lose those 50-year-old guys that have 30, 40 years of builder knowledge. But you also want young people who are interested in both things. They want to adopt the
Hmm.
tech and they are interested in the physical aspect of construction. You can't lose sight of
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
talk about that. Like, it's interesting to hire people now for companies like
Yeah.
yours.
And I lecture at Auburn University every semester for the past 9 years. I lectured all their technology classes, especially their intro to technology. The first one that all the students see when they come into the program. And one of the I have a slide on there, and I've shown it every semester, every year for almost 10 years. And it's the willingness to learn equals advancement and higher pay. right? And so always being able to strive to be a better builder and then treat learning just like you're in school, right? And never be too busy at work to learn something. And I think that goes for everything we do in the industry. So superintendent, it may not be tech, but maybe an assistant superintendent is learning from a senior superintendent about ways to manage trades in the field. So that's a willingness to learn. And then technology is the same thing. It's just different, right? It's a different category, but it's still the same practice. And so I've noticed to where if someone doesn't have a willingness to learn technology, then they may not have a willingness to learn. I mean, there are exceptions when you're old school guys and stuff like that, and I understand that. But in general, they may not have a willingness on anything. And so, really, just to have that improvement and that skill set for the younger guys and the older guys, whether the younger guys are learning about construction or the older guys are learning about tech, to help them be better at the construction they already know about. So I try
It's
to try to
beautiful.
try to instill that early on with those guys because it does
Yeah.
matter. I've seen over 20 years of because I'm kind of the person that teaches everybody new stuff, right? At all these different companies, and there's two types of folks. And really, if you just embrace it and say, "Hey, I don't agree with this, but I want to listen to you because our company thinks this is something that's going to help, and let me at least try it and be open to it." So, yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. What I've found too in my career, I don't know if you agree with this, but I grew up with a dad that was an analytical, like civil engineer, wanted me to be a civil engineer, and I did end up in something similar, but I was just like,
yeah,
he was very just at work. He was a professional guy. He didn't talk about emotions. He didn't really get overly excited about anything. And that's kind of what I thought engineers were supposed to be. So
yeah,
I kind of fought against that, and I was like, I think it should be fun. I think engineers should have fun. I think architects should have fun. I think we should enjoy ourselves. I think we should tell jokes every once in a while. Why
yeah,
does the tech industry get to be the only industry that's like cool? I think that building stuff is really cool, and I think it's really fun. And the way that I kind of because sometimes you can't just go around like goofing off and whistling on a construction site. People won't take you seriously, but I do enjoy myself. I enjoy myself with the nerdy stuff of our work. I enjoy it with the manly masculine stuff. I like seeing bulldozers.
hmm,
I like there's something fun about our industry, and I just want my generation to say like, hey, work can be fun even when it's not. We're on a team
hmm,
here. Like, even when there's a really hard client or a really hard subcontractor that's giving you a hard time, like, we can enjoy this and laugh about it and enjoy each other. And I don't know, to me, like, when I look for people I want to work with and around, it's much less about I hope they got a degree and they have some of the knowledge they need. But to me, it's about, like, are you enjoyable to be around?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, people can have all the degrees in the world, and if you can't work with them, I think people's personalities and I mean, you can improve that over the years in training and leadership training, but I mean, a lot of that's kind of ingrained, and you're really finding the right person that's easy to work with, and that's even more so important in construction because we're talking to people all day long, every day, right? And especially in the field, and it's a people job, it's a communication job, and yeah, that's a huge
And I
thing. And
think,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I
I
think,
said we spend most of the time we spend more time at work than we do
yeah.
anywhere else, right? As far as hours in a day, I mean, you need to be able to enjoy folks you're around and what you're doing. And if you're not, maybe that's not what you should be doing, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that
Yeah.
enjoying work is funny because everybody likes to complain about their job, and there can become a culture of gossip in a workplace. And I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing this up just because I can be a part of the negative stuff too. But I think we should all just like, hey, let's enjoy our work even when it's hard. Because I think the
Yeah.
best things in life, we both have kids. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Getting married is hard, having a kid is harder, and the reason they're hard is because they're worth it, and you struggle and you grow. And that's why I called this podcast constructive, because it's like criticism is something we hate, but when it's constructive it makes us better. Who doesn't want
Mm-hmm.
that? You have to go through the hard stuff to get to the good stuff, and I think that's
Yeah.
true with work too. Let's enjoy the hard stuff because it's making us better people.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my
Yeah.
soapbox.
No, hey, you're right. And I believe that for a long time. And really, I think people are afraid to even ask questions, in our industry because they'll be afraid of how they're perceived sometimes. And then, we're always encouraging to say, ask those questions. Don't matter if you've been in the industry 20 years or I still ask questions. And when I'm in the field or I see something I don't know what it is or I'm not sure about, I'm going to ask the guy that sees it every day and get his perspectives. We may think we have an answer about something, but it's great to get everybody else's answer, and then your own perception of something gets even better. And I try to instill that in especially new employees or the students I lecture to, anybody that, let's learn from everybody, enjoy yourself. And if there's something you don't enjoy, figure out how to fix it, figure out how, maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else,
Yeah.
but kind of
That's a
maybe
good
it's a little
point
bit of,
too. Sometimes the things that bother us are a good money-making opportunity. If you find something that annoys you and you can fix it, you're gonna make some money doing that.
yeah,
Thanks for coming on, Paul. I
that's
feel
every
like
one of the tech startups,
good
trying to
point.
find something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Thanks for coming on and
Yeah.
really good meeting you. And everybody go find Paul on LinkedIn. Is there anything else you want to plug? Just connect. You got too many connections on LinkedIn, so I can't let people, just so you know, everybody, Paul can't connect with you anymore, but he wants to meet up with you. If you want to send him a message, what else do you want to say?
Yeah, just follow me and then you can send me a message. And I think the biggest thing is I like to learn from other people and learn about their experiences. So if you have any questions about tech or any kind of our tech stack or what we do or anything interesting that you want to share with me, that's something that I'd love a conversation about. And, for one thing, is even we may be competitors, and I'm probably not direct competitors with a lot of folks all over the country. We only have a select few that we compete with, but even if we are competitors, technology is not a competitive thing. It's something that we should all share, and because it's going to make us better at what we do. It's going to make us go home quicker to our families and have less problems for the owners that we build great facilities for. So yeah, reach out, please. Love to talk.
Appreciate that. That was a beautiful way to end it. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks guys.